am Muskan. Today we are solving 2021 and 2022 question paper. We are just doing the psychology portion of that and going ahead with the 2021 gate paper. And this is the very first question. As it is mentioned here that this question is a MCQ type 1 mark question, and it says that according to the path goal theory of leadership, this is a very direct question, right? So according to this particular theory, a style of leadership in which the leader consults with the subordinate, involves them in the decision making process. So what is it called? It cannot be directive, because directive is someone who is the authority figure who is telling you what to do, right? Supportive, no, there is no such, and not even achievement oriented. So participative is the answer. They are being participative in the work, whatever is needed to be done, and they are, like asking their subordinates what all decisions are made. So obviously it was a very direct question. So it is based up in the path goal theory of leadership, right? Now moving ahead to the second question, we would read the question. The question says that a process in which we are testing reliability. So this question is basically based in the types of reliability. So herein they are saying that they are creating a large bank of items. कि एक जगह उन्होंने items का एक बहुत pool बना लिया, maybe for 100 items, and they are dividing those bank of items into two different or more versions. ठीक है, maybe 50 question in this particular test, 50 question in this particular version, right? They are creating different versions. So if you will read it, it is very like what is all it is alternate and parallel form reliability. So what are they doing? They are creating a similar bank of item, similar pool of item, and then they are dividing those items into two different versions. So the questions are of the same construct, same variable that we wanted to, and they are now measuring the reliability of both of these alternatively. Right, so this is the alternate and parallel form reliability. Right, it cannot be measure of test of homogeneity for sure. Retest reliability is what? That, for example, there is a questionnaire of intelligence. I have used this particular questionnaire. I have assessed. I have used this on a sample of 100 people. And later on, after some period of time, I am reusing this or retesting the reliability on the same test, right? On the same sample which we have taken earlier. Inter-rater reliability is what most of you answered this, but this is where this is mostly used in the subjective type of questionnaire, right? Or maybe those, right? So what happens here is, or maybe what we will do is we would take in experts of psychology, right? So for example, I am creating a questionnaire of intelligence. So what I will do is I will create a questionnaire, I will research on it, I will do everything, and I will create a questionnaire. Maybe that questionnaire was of 10 marks, 10 questions each. And I have given this particular questionnaire to 20 experts of psychology for them to see and tell me if this particular question, okay, we'll discuss that. So what does this particular, is this the questionnaire which is reliable? Is this the questionnaire, do you think that it measures the reliability of the people? Right, so that is inter-rater reliability. So a lot of people would rate our particular questionnaire and then we would do. Right, okay, there was someone who was asking some question. Ma'am, then what's the difference between option A and split half reliability? Okay. Now what happens is, here we took a pool of question and divided into two different versions. In split half reliability, for example, I have made this 10 item questionnaire. I will split that questionnaire, this one questionnaire. Here is just one questionnaire. Here we are making two versions of the same test. For example, you might have done certain questionnaire जिसमें form A, form B होता है, जैसे culture fair intelligence test. There is a form A, form B. So what are they? They are alternate versions, right? So herein we are just taking one questionnaire, and what we are doing is we are dividing the questions into two parts, maybe on the basis of even odd, maybe first half, second half. So what we will do, I will ask my sample. For example, I have taken a sample of 50 people. Now I have asked these 50 people to first solve the first 5 questions and later on solve the last 5 questions. Right. So herein I will check the internal reliability. I will see like how much consistent are the scores. Like ऐसा तो नहीं है कि like the people are scoring very high on the 5 which are the first question and very last. तो जो ऐसे थोड़े हमारे speed test, power test उनके basis पे होता है. तो that is the main thing. That is the main difference. And I hope it is a little clear to you, Ishika, now. Is it? So what I will do is I will not spend a lot of time on other type of questions which are like very theoretical or very straightforward. I would spend a little time on the research type questions, right? So, okay. Moving ahead on the next question. So this question basically says the delusion of reference is a symptom of schizophrenia. Right? So reference, like basic English wala word ki like you are being directed to, you are being talked to. Right, so A is the correct answer here. Believe that random events or comments are directed at. On to the next question. It says that a student was preparing for an exam inadequately. Right, and when he failed that particular exam, he blamed that the other students were cheating, the professor taught badly. Right, so herein, actually the answer should be D because he is rationalizing. He is telling himself, okay, I failed because others performed better, the teacher was not that good. Right, he's not projecting his emotion on other people, but the key said A. So like even in the even in the 2022 question, the defense mechanism answer was given wrong. So the key was saying A, but the correct answer should be D. So that is the main thing. Right, even in the next paper, even in the 2022 paper, they did the same thing. They asked a question which was talking about rationalization and they gave the answer to be projection. And a lot of students actually questioned the answer key, but then they didn't actually changed it in the final answer key. So yes, now we will read this particular question. So yes, this question was fairly very simple. It was based in defense mechanism. If you all remember the last class, I made an analysis of the papers, right, wherein I wrote all the like main topics or major topics which were asked, right? So I think I will send that to you maybe tomorrow or day after tomorrow. You can also read and go through that questions or that topics first, right? Because they are of great importance, especially the ones which were common to both the papers. So moving ahead with the fifth question. So the question basically says that what is the following, like which of the following theory of emotion this question is talking about. So the perception of the environmental stimulation, so perception results in emotion and physiological reaction simultaneously at the same time, right? So Cannon bar theory is the one. I have also attached one diagram. Wait, let me check and show it to you. Wait. Yes, this was it. I have attached this particular diagram in it. So like these are the different theories of emotions. So like according to them, this is the particular diagram which is there. So the question said that which is the theory in which the arousal of the body, the physiological changes and the emotion is experienced at the same time. So that is happening in the Cannon bar theory, right? So now moving back to the next question. Now the question says that the perceived fairness of distribution of resources and rewards in is described as, now it is like अगर English wise भी चाहे तभी भी, तो it is distributive justice. So there are 3 type of distributive justice or organizational justice, sorry. So it is of 3 type. The distributive justice, like when I'm working in an environment, so I would want that all the things, every perk, resources, rewards are divided equally. And this distributive justice is actually based in the equity theory. Right? The second type of organizational justice is procedural justice. Like the policies are fair, they are not biased towards anyone, and interactional justice. Right? So this basically talks about that our boss or everyone, like on an interpersonal level, there is fairness. There is no like, and at last informational justice. Informational justice is very much blended with the interactional justice, that everyone has a right to be informed. Everyone is informed correctly. There is no one that, like for example, there was one employee which was not even told that they have to submit that assignment and they were left behind. Right? So that was for the sixth question, and now we would, so it is based in the organizational justice and types of organizational justice which are there. Right, moving ahead with the next question. According to Bandura's theory of personality, which one of the following is the most important person variable? Right, now if we look at all the variables which are said here, self-efficacy, self-concept, self-esteem, now self-efficacy have major aspect of it. Like for example, there is mastery of a particular skill, there is the interpersonal relationship, there is a confidence, right? And it also includes like everything. So self-efficacy is the most important person variable because it includes that thing. But all of these are based in one individual person only, right? They are not that much vast as self-efficacy is. So self-efficacy is the most important or most viable option here. Now moving ahead with the next question. So this particular question basically talks about the various type of stresses which are there, right? So a young child who loses his water bottle on the school bus, that is a basic daily life hassle which is there, like day to day event है जिसने एक तरह का stress create कर दिया. A person who escaped from Taj Hotel on whatever. So this is a basically traumatic event. This is a major event, right? So this is a traumatic event which would leave a great deal of impact or because of the stress experienced during this time. Someone fearing the loss of one's job. Now this is a type of chronic stressor. Why? Because in this particular type of stressor, the person will feel this particular stress for a long period of time. For example, like maybe for months and months, he would fear that, okay, I should not lose my job. Right? Now, a woman who has a first baby, now that is the only option which is a major life event. It is there. जो Holmes and Rahe की theory है, वहाँ पे भी it has been discussed. Like all of these, mostly. Right? So, very well done to all of you who have answered correctly. Now, the next question. Question asks about the type of color blindness which is there. So, it is basically in the chapter of perception of light. So, herein tritanopia is the correct answer because it talks about the blue, yellow color deficiency. Both of these basically talk about red and green majorly. Red and green, deficiency of red and green pigments, and Ritalin is basically a type of drug which is given to ADHD, like people who are suffering from ADHD. So that was it for that question, and mark yourself accordingly. Now, next question. It is written that which of the following properties of sound is similar to hue of light. So now we will see what hue of light talks about. It basically talks about the wavelength, the frequency of each, and pitch. Pitch is the only one here which talks about the frequency of sound. Timbre is basically the quality. Loudness we know, right? Purity, no. So pitch is the correct answer. Good to every one of you who answers states that it is a type of reinforcement schedule where the animal receives a reinforcement on various amount of time. So time is interval and variable interval. Well done to all of you. Moving ahead to the next question. A is the correct answer, retrograde amnesia. Right, because we have forgotten the previous memories which were there, and it is also based in the memory part, right? If you will see, there are a lot of questions memory based. They would also come later. Wait, I'm changing the slide for the next question. Yes, phobias and obsessive compulsive disorder used to fall in anxiety disorders in DSM-4-TR, right? So yes, good for those of you who have answered it correctly. Moving on to the next question. So now the question basically talks about the unit of speech which has meaning. So phoneme is the smallest speech, but it does not have any meaning. So morpheme is the correct answer here because it has a meaning, right? Now moving ahead to the next question. This particular question, they have contrasted Piaget's formal operations and Kohlberg's theory of morality. I hope you all know that there was a theory of morality which was given by Piaget also, where he talked about pre-moral, amoral. So most of you have answered it correctly. A, post-conventional morality is the correct answer here. Now this particular question basically talks about the technique which conducts an integrated statistical analysis of multiple independent studies. Now we know that if it was written that multiple independent variable, then the answer would have been regression analysis, but as it says multiple independent studies, the answer is meta-analysis. Well done to all of you who have answered correctly. Moving on to the next question. Right, it is based in the Vygotsky theory of development, cognitive development, where he talked about the importance of culture, JPD, right, zone of proximal development, and scaffolding. Moving on to the next question. There is A, and this particular question is basically asking about the attribution error, right? That like we are misattributing the cause, right? So herein we are saying that people consider the situational factors while judging others' behavior, because this is a basically fundamental attribution error, wherein like it is a mentality that I was pushed and you fell, right? Not like no frustration analysis, reinforcement overall. No, it's not based on that. Moving ahead, answer is A, archival analysis. So what we do in archival analysis, we study the documents, we examine the documents which are there, right? And as it is talking about a culture, that is basically basically maybe to confuse us, but it says archival analysis, so it is very clear that the answer would be A. Moving ahead, the answer is what? The answer is A, B and C. Why? Because we know that in the Howard Gardner's theory of intelligence, which was given in what year? 1938, we talk about logical mathematical intelligence, linguistic intelligence and spatial intelligence. Insight learning is there, right? So A, B, C are the correct option here. Now he asks about the effect of various neurotransmitters, right? Now acetylcholine is basically involved in learning, memory, muscle action and also P. Norepinephrine, like it is a parasympathetic wala pura nervous system है, so it is involved in control, alertness, wakefulness. It is not a lot, like it is not that of a correct worded question here, but then if we go according to the question, it is the correct answer. So serotonin, we know that serotonin is a mood stabilizer, mood regulator. So R. Gamma acts like it has effects on our brain like that of alcohol, and it is a major inhibitory neurotransmitter. So S. So P4Q1 R2. So yeah, A should be the correct answer here. Glad to see that most of you answered correctly. Give yourself the marks accordingly. Moving ahead to the next question, now we have, so we know that this question is based in depth perception. Now we read the question. So aerial perspective. Aerial perspective is what? When we look something from above, right? It seems fuzzy, like something which is there above. So the distant mountains appear fuzzy, appear blurry. So P. Motion parallax. Motion parallax happens when you are traveling in a train, right? When we are moving forward, we see that the other, like we feel that the other things are moving in the opposite direction. So fourth, Q. Convergence. We know that convergence is what? Like when we move both of these eyes to the center when we look at the object, right? So our eyes, basically our eyeballs converge. And at last, linear perspective, the parallel lines which converge at the horizon. So S is the correct answer. Sorry, A is the correct answer here because yes. Moving ahead to the 23rd question. Does anyone know what is this question based in? कौन सी theory, कौन से concept पे based है? Anyone?
Memory.
Yes. It is basically sins of memories. These are the sins of memories which have been discussed here. So now, transience. Transience is what? When we are not able to assess a memory for a long period of time, so the memory would decrease with time, right? So, P. Misattribution. We have confused the source, like we have attributed the source to be someone else. So, 1. Absent-mindedness. Like for example, when we are sitting in a class, we lose attention, right? In times of forgetting caused by lapses in attention. Persistence, when you're not able to forget undesirable memories, right? So P4, next P3, Q1, R is 4. This is the answer, right? A is the answer. Moving ahead to the question number 24. Which of the following statements are true for a learning acquisition curve drawn from for a classical conditioning experiment on eye blinking, right? So we would read the options. Learning on earlier trials is more than that on later trials. That is very correct. What happens initially, the learning is very quick, right, and then it starts to be very slowed down. I have also attached one diagram for the same. This is it. In the earlier trials, the learning is very quick. Like maybe for a child, for example, the child would quick up the questions, quick up anything very quickly. Sorry, pick up anything very quickly. But in later on, this learning process would slow down. Right, so A is the correct option. Then let us read B. The learning curve is negatively accelerated. Right? Because why? Because initially the acceleration is very high and then it starts to slow down. So B is also correct. It is negatively accelerated. C. The rate of learning in later trials will be more. No, it is very contradicted to C, so it cannot be an answer. It cannot be an answer. The rate of learning is proportionally increasing with the increasing number of trials. No, it is not. So A and B are the only viable and correct options here. Moving ahead to the next question. In the situation, the teenager hates studying science, but is also not able to tell his parents, fearing their reactions. What is the conflict he is facing, and which of the following may be his way of living? Now, studying science is also a situation that the child would want to avoid. And telling parents is also a situation, like fearing their reaction, it is also a situation that the child would want to avoid. So it's a avoidance, conflict. So avoidance, conflict. Okay, he will keep vacillating between telling his parents and continuing to study. Yes. avoidance. Approach avoidance, no. Multiple approach avoidance, no. So A and B are the correct options here because it is a avoidance conflict. Moving on to the 26th question number. It is a MSQ type question. Is basically based in McClelland because he has given the achievement motivation, right? So the question asks which of these statements are true about individuals who are high on achievement motivation. Now let us read the options. High individuals who are high on achievement like to work on situation where they have control and get feedback. Yes, very correct. High achievement individuals persistently work on tasks they perceive as either reflecting their personal characteristic like intelligence or are career related. Yes, they would want to grow in their career, they would want to achieve more height in their career. See, high achievement individuals prefer working on extremely challenging tasks. They would want to prefer on moderately challenging tasks, not extremely, because they would have a fear of failure, right, which can impact their achievement. So they would not want to involve themselves in a very extremely challenging, risky task for bigger gain. They would want to work on a moderately challenging task so that their success or their achievement is guaranteed. Now, high-end achievement individuals avoid changing their aspirations level. No, they would like to change their aspirations level because in order to ensure the achievement, in order to ensure that they don't fail, right? If they see that they are failing in a particular arena, right, they would stop trying. They would change their focus. They would change their goal altogether, right? So they would change their aspiration levels if required. So A and B are the correct answers here. Which of the following is or are Alport's basic assumption? Now we know which theory did Alport give. Which theory did Alport give? Tao Tausli. I'm waiting for you to answer. कौन सी थ्योरी दी थी एल्पोर्ट ने? कौन सी थ्योरी की बात कर रही है यहाँ पे? Yes, very good Sakshi. Proud of you. So, in this particular theory, what did he talk about? He viewed growth as an active process of becoming. Yes, he believed in that. Right? Now, personality cannot be fully understood by examining each trait separately, though some system of conceptual schemata are essential for personality study. Yes, what did he do? He talked about source traits, he talked about surface traits, he talked about secondary traits. So what did he say? Right? He wait, yes, Aryan. Are you saying anything? Is anyone able to hear what Aryan is trying to say? Or is he just talking like around with his around? Wait, let me mute him. Okay. Yes. So, Alport basically talked about personality which cannot be fully understood by examining just one single trait. We have to study it as a group of lot of traits, right? Now, moving on to the next question. We would read this particular question. It basically talks about the characteristics of the group structure in an organizational context. So there are three types: task-oriented, socio-emotional, prescriptive. Right? So A, B, C are the correct options here. Monitoring there is no such characteristic, and it is very factual question. So we would have to get into the theory, read it to get it right. Okay. Moving on to the Next question. So deficit needs. Yes, we know that initially Abraham Maslow just gave the 5 needs that he wanted to give, right? Physiological, belonging, everything, that whatever he wanted to give. But later on, that particular model was expanded, right? Where then they divided these needs into deficiency needs and higher order needs. So for sure he talked about deficiency needs. There were meta needs also. So there were more needs which were added here after self-esteem. So there were transcendental needs, aesthetic needs, cognitive needs. So those are known as meta needs. And self-actualization, that is though he talked about. So he expanded that particular model. Okay. Moving ahead to the next question, question number 30. Also is conducting a study involving two independent variables, which means two IVs. तो for sure two way ANOVA होगा, क्योंकि two independent variable है तो one में तो कोई नहीं सकता. Three way यहाँ पे तो तीन ANOVA दे रखे हैं, मतलब तीन independent variable दे रखे हैं, 1 2 3. Two independent variables are there. So basically how is it written is कि 2 into 2. So there are two independent variables. Each variable has 2 levels. And in this one variable has 4 levels and the other variable has 3 levels. Have you all done ANOVA in your classes? I don't actually know how, on which level you all are. Okay, so that was based in that. So it is a two-way ANOVA. Okay, Shika. Okay. We'll discuss that. Right. Now moving forward, question is basically based in proxemics. Right. So obviously personal space is a silent and invisible area. We cannot see, everyone has a defined invisible area for them. Right. So it is a geographical component of interpersonal relationship. Right. So for example, with an office worker, I share a public space, not a personal space. Right. So there are different divisions in the proxemics. So 2 is also an answer, because for different interpersonal relationship, we have a different level of geographical area that we allot to them. Then invasions of personal space are a matter of degree. So it varies from person to person that what they consider as invasion. Like for example, for someone, if you are crossing the limit or the distance of 2 feet, it would be invasion to their personal space for them. For someone, it might not. So it is a matter of degree. There are no across cultural variation. No, there are, because in different culture there are different different idea of proximity, different idea attached to it. Like for example, maybe in a country like India, we are not that comfortable with people maybe hugging in public spaces, like a lot of people are not. So there are different culture variation. Maybe in some culture it might consider to be as okay, normal, very normal, right? Moving ahead to the next question. First of all, I would like to say that this question is a little it could have been better structured, but okay, let us look at it. If a person got a score of 75 on a test, so our x is what? 75. Which of the following distribution allow for the most variable interpretation of that score? Given higher values are more favorable. Now, we all know about normal probability curve or NPC. Have we read about NPC? What is NPC? Have we? Anyone? Okay, Shika. Now, we know that in normal probability curve, in normal distribution, we assume that our mean is in the middle and it has a standard deviation of 0. Right? And here is +1, +2, and here is -1, -2. Do we do that in a normal probability curve? Right? So herein we are, तो हम हर एक option को देखेंगे पहले. Right? So here in the first option, the mean is given out to be 55. So it should be here and The standard deviation here is 0. Now the question could have been better worded, where they could have said that each standard deviation is of 4 marks. Right, but उन्होंने सीधा बोला standard deviation is 4, which is not actually possible, because in a normal probability curve when we make 3 से ज़्यादा is not possible. +3 and -3 उससे ज़्यादा are not possible. So we are assuming, because of the language of the question, that each standard deviation, which means in order to have one standard deviation there should be a difference of 4 marks. So if here is 55, here should be 59. Right? So that is what is happening here. So in order for me to attain 75, 55 का 75 करने के लिए I would need what? 20 marks. So I would have to multiply 4 by what? 5. So the standard deviation it would lie on is 5. तो इसकी standard deviation क्या है? 5. Is it clear to everyone, like what I'm trying to say? Like what is here? What is basic explanation here?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So similarly in the next option we would do that. So the difference between 75 to 6. So in order to reach to 75 I would have to make 15, attain 15 more marks. So if each standard deviation is of 3 marks, I would have to multiply it by 5. Similarly in this I would have to multiply it by 2, and here I would have to multiply it by 2.5. Now if we look at the question, it says that assuming higher values are more favorable. So higher values, so 5 or 5 में है ना, so A and B are the correct option here. Now I get it that the question is not that much, like it is not that much well given, well interpreted, but that is the basic solution to it. Right? It is simple if you understand what it tries to say. Right? Clear to everyone?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now moving ahead to the next question. Okay, this is a MSQ type question and we will read the question. A man's wife is dying. She is in dire need of a drug. The only place to get that drug is at a store of a pharmacist who is known to overcharge people for drugs. Right? The man can only pay 20,000, but the pharmacist wants 50,000 and refuses to sell it to him for less, or to let him pay later. What will the man do if he is at the conventional stage of morality? Now, can you remember anything like while reading this particular question? Anything which rings the bell? कि कहाँ पे based है, क्या है?
Lawrence Hensler, Holberg Moral Development Theory.
Yes, very well done, Danya and Saksham, very well done. So it is based in that. So it is talking about that. But he specified that this particular person it as the conventional stage. So what do we need at conventional stage? We need societal approval. And we just want to follow the law. These are the two aspects of it. So now keeping this in mind, we would read the questions. He would not steal the drug, as everyone will see him as a thief, and his wife would not approve of his stealing or accept the stolen drug. Is it talking about the societal approval? Yes, it is. So yes, no matter what, he would obey the law because stealing is a crime. Right? Law को follow करना is very important. So B is also correct. The man would not steal the drug, as he may get caught or go to jail. Now, this option is basically talking about what? Consequence. I know it can be a little tricky. It is talking about law also, but it is talking about the consequence. And consequence कहाँ आता है? Pre-conventional stage में. कि we think about the consequence, and that's why we don't do anything. कि we would get the reward or we would get punishment. Because of that we don't do. So C is not answer. If we read the question, if we read the language, obviously it is not that well worded, but yes. D. The man would steal the drug to cure his wife, and then tell the authorities what he has done. He may have to pay a penalty, but at least he would have saved a human life. Now, he would have saved a human life is based on what? Principles of a person, that saving a human life is much more important than the approval. Right, so वो कहाँ पे आता है हमारे पोस्ट कन्वेंशनल स्टेज में. देयर आर 3 stages in the Kohlberg: प्री कन्वेंशनल, कन्वेंशनल, पोस्ट कन्वेंशनल. प्री कन्वेंशनल में हम सिर्फ और सिर्फ we talk about consequences to be a good boy, good girl, right, to be accepted. In the conventional stage we talk about societal approval at whole and law, and in the later post conventional stage we talked about our personal our integrity wale principles. So this is that part. So A and B are the correct options here, and I hope it is clear. Okay, Dhanya's dilemma we are going to call it. Okay, read this question. These terms which are mentioned in the options are related to Marcia's theory, but here he is asking about, the question is asking about Erik Erikson's theory, right? So most of you would confuse it to be the crisis which Marcia discussed in their theory, but it is asking in term of Erik Erikson. So A and B are the only viable option, because it talks about the identity versus role confusion, that they are not able to identify who they are, they are not able to identify, or they are confused, right, in that sense. So A and B are the only option there, and obviously it is a contrast question of both the theories. So A and B are the answer, and the basic trick is you have to look at it in terms of Erik Erikson's theory. Now moving ahead with the question number 35. The lifespan experts argue that the biological aging begins at birth. Right, obviously. Which of the following is our explanations of aging? The cell can divide maximum of about 75 to 80 times, and that as people age, cell become less capable of dividing. We know that as we grow, हमारा जो cell division होता है, it becomes slower. Right, so A. People age because when cell metabolize energy and the byproducts include unstable oxygen molecules known as radicals. Obviously, because the byproducts are not well managed as we age. Aging is due to the decay of mitochondria. We know mitochondria are powerhouse of the cell. If it would decay, तो aging would happen. Cell division increases as people age. No, it is in contrast to question number A कि यहाँ पे division would become lesser. As we age, our cells would find it difficult to divide. So the division would also as we age, the cell division would decrease, not increase. So A, B, C are the correct options here. Just 5 more questions to go. Please read and solve carefully, fairly. Which of the following are involved in sympathetic nervous system activation? Sympathetic nervous system में क्या होता है? Fight, flight, freeze. अभी freeze had much recently than fight and flight. ठीक है, so inhibited salivation. Obviously कि if we would salivate much, digestion, metabolism बहुत fast हो जाएगा, we would lose out our energy much quicker. So A would be the answer कि salivation is inhibited. Then increased heart rate. Yes, when we are in a situation like that, if we have to fight or flight, our heart rate increases. Inhibited digestion. Obviously salivation कम हो रही है तो digestion, इसीलिए digestion ही कम हो रहा है हमारा. Like constricted pupils, no, dilate हो जाते हैं हमारे pupils at that time. So A, B, C are the correct option here. Moving ahead to question number 37. Very easy, simple question. Obviously when we you must have been doing etiology of the particular disorder, abnormal behavior, mental health disorders that you have been studying. So we use twin studies to see if there is a genetical cause to that. We use family history studies, that if your father, your grandparents, anyone, so family history studies are of much importance. Then using adoption studies. right? Twins reared apart, twins reared together, right? We do those kind of studies. No, we don't use psychodynamic studies to do the genetic theory. No, that is a different aspect of it altogether. Moving ahead to the question number 38. You can read this particular question and then we would solve. Okay, Saksham. Saksham and Dhanya are enjoying it. Okay. I hope exam also allows plus. Chalo chalo, read the question. Okay. 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 Last time, while we were doing the introductory class, someone asked me, "Ma'am, can it happen? Ki they might just like say that it is a MSQ type question and they would just say one answer is correct." And I said, "No, they won't do that much like wrong to you, but this is one such question, so can't say anything." A is the correct answer. Let us read the question first. An investigator approached college students who initially believed that water should be purified. Okay. And asked them to compose and recite a videotaped speech against the use of water purifier. To do this, some were offered large incentives and others were offered small incentives. Later, their attitudes towards water purifiers were tested. Which of the following will be the expected findings? Can you relate it to something? Can you relate it to any uh, question which was there? Like any theory which was there? Anything? That it is the adapted version of that. Can you? Okay. Okay. Yeah. So it is based in cognitive dissonance or the theories of attitude change, you can say. So this was basically based in a theory given by Festinger and Carl, जो हमारी minimum justification effect की है. So what does it say? तो actually पूरे जो experiment में भी I'll talk about the minimum justification effect. तो what used to happen there कि the students were given the tasks which were very boring. Okay, and one was offered very small initiative and the other was offered large initiative. So it was seen that those who were offered large initiative and they were asked to tell people that the tasks were very interesting. So what happened? They didn't, like the people who were given larger incentives, they didn't tell people that. They said, "Ki, I just did it for money. There was nothing, like the tasks were boring itself." Right? But the people who were offered small incentives, what they do? give, because they have put in a lot of time, they have put in a lot of effort. So they started to justify themselves. They said no, they were not that boring, it was okay. So the people with the smaller incentive changed their attitude, right, to a greater extent. But the people with large incentive did not. They were stuck by what was there. Now read this question in that particular aspect, right? So question A option says that the smaller the incentive, the greater will be the attitude change. Because of the minimal justification effect, all the students will change their attitudes towards water purifier. No, not sure. All the students will continue to feel favorably about water purifiers. No. The larger the incentive, the greater will be the attitude change. No, the lower will be the attitude change. Right? So A is the only viable and correct option there. Though it might seem like very key, okay, key. The question was like, it was a MSQ based question, but there was just one correct answer. But it just happened in this 2021 paper. There was no such question in 2022 paper. So I would say that maybe they realized their mistake and then they did not give that type of question, and hopefully it would not come in this particular year as well. So let us do the last second question and then we have the last question. That's it. The question says that in which attachment styles do the children tend to show clingy behavior but reject the attachment figure to interact with them. Now, resistant would do that. They want to be cared for, they want to be embraced by their parents, but they would show that rejection or resistance initially. Right? Avoidant? No, they would avoid the parent altogether. Okay? Secure attachment style? No, they would not do it. They would lead the parents once they come, and disorganized? No, it's not that. So, and in which theory it is based in? Mary Ainsworth stranger test, if you remember. Right? Now, B. This was also one such question. Only one option was the answer. Now, moving ahead to the last question of 2021 paper, class also. So let us read the question first. A study is conducted to see effectiveness of volume levels of commercial. So effectiveness is the dV here and volume levels are IV, independent variable. In the graph given below, the value of mean effectiveness or dependent variable are presented on the y-axis. Okay, y-axis. And on the x-axis there is 3 levels of volume, which is soft, medium and large. The graph shows the relationship between volume and mean effectiveness for males in the continuous line. So this line is for what? Males, and the dashed line is for females. Right, we have read the question now. Let us read the interpretation and we have to select the options which are correct. So the first question says that there is a linear relationship for males. Let us look at the line for me. So as the volume is increasing, okay, the effectiveness is also decreasing, or as the volume is decreasing, the effectiveness is also decreasing. So there is a linear relationship. If one is increasing, the other one is increasing. If one is decreasing, the other one is decreasing. Right? A non-linear relationship for females. Yes, it is non-linear. There is no as such relationship found like in males. The effect of increasing volume on effectiveness depends on whether the participant is a male participant or a female participant. Obviously, because males have showcased, like in this particular experiment, males have showcased to have a linear relationship. So males have a linear relationship with the effectiveness and volume level, females don't. So it is dependent upon the gender of the participant. No interaction level is seen. No, there is some interaction, right? So it is wrong. A linear relationship exists. No, only for males a linear relationship existing. So very, very good, happy ending to